You guys, I'm frustrated. Today's video is sponsored by my watch fucking breaking since the last time I recorded for you. I'm not very happy about it. See, I have this Fossil smartwatch, and look at that! I hope you can see that. The fucking case came off. It's just off. It's just, you can just pull it and it doesn't come out, but it comes really far up. You can see in its guts. You can see its guts. Love an expensive repair. First thing, to start off, I want to apologize because I look like crap. My hair looks weird. I got this little thing here, and all of that is because I'm sweaty. It's very, very hot in Southern California at the moment. It's been over 100 degrees almost every day for the last 2 weeks, and the entire state is on fire. And there are lightning storms, and fire tornadoes, and earthquakes all the time. All the time, everywhere. So if you don't live here, that's what's going on. Anyway, hi guys. Today's video is about something that's very close to me, and what you will have seen in the thumbnail title sort of deal. Today's video is about what it means to be non-binary. As you guys are very well aware, either by seeing me, listening to me, or having watched my previous videos, I'm trans. And, you know, you might think you know what that means, and I hope that you do. And lots of you are very vocally nice to me about it, and I really appreciate that. But I wanted to sort of give some information on how it feels to be trans, but more specifically, what it means to be non-binary. So a lot of people would be asking right now, what does that mean? Or that sounds fake. Or there are only two genders, which isn't a question, but somehow still gets brought up a lot when you ask for questions about being trans. Let me explain. So the term non-binary, as the word would imply, it's going to be somewhere near me. The part that's non is obviously not, or, you know, isn't. And then the binary part is two. I mean, it's complicated, but you know, the gender binary refers to male and female. The two genders that most people can agree exist. But being non-binary means identifying in a way where you do not feel as though you are a man or a woman. Some people are going to get mad about the fact that I said the word feel there, but I'm just not going to make a billion concessions for myself because I'd be here for 20 minutes. So, if you're not male, you're not female, how does that work? How can you be outside of that? How can you possibly not be male, female, or a mix of the two? How does that work? Well, first thing we have to get out of the way is that sex does not equal gender, okay? What you got in your pants or attached to your body does not imply necessarily anything about your gender identity. They are completely unrelated, as much as they can be in a society where being a man or a woman isn't a bad thing. It's just not for me, and a lot of people agree. So let me explain how that works. Let me break it down like this. There are a lot of people who work differently naturally from other people. Think about, okay, if you're someone who's really bad at math, right? Look at people who can do math and think like, how does that work? And then every time you try to ask them, they just tell you, oh, well, it's simple. I just multiply this and I carry the two and I do it on this chalkboard and I divide linear algebra by 200 and I know what geometry and calculus mean and I carry multiplying as I do a Punnett by Snooki's credit card number. That's how it sounds when you hear math, when you're not a person who does math. And you can train, but it's significantly harder just coincidentally based on how your brain works. Those things are, you know, I guess more tangible tasks than the concept of gender, since it's not a test. There's no gender test, but it's the same type of thing. Sometimes, with enough exposure to something, you may realize that your brain just clicks with that thing. You know, people who are good at math wouldn't be good at math if no one had invented math. I mean, the people who invented math were like that, but you know, there are tons of people who could have technically invented math, but they didn't think about it, right? Because why would you if there was no math? So it's the same type of thing. I'm not, just because I'm non-binary doesn't mean that I was born with the outset vision to be not a man or a woman and confuse everyone in my family. It's not like that. I wouldn't know that that was a thing, or I wouldn't feel like that was how I identified if I wasn't exposed to it by LGBT culture, society, other people that I've met along the way. Hey guys, real quick, I feel like it's important to note here that what I was sort of getting at with that whole math metaphor is that a lot of times when people don't believe that being non-binary or not being strictly male or female is a thing, they try to ask you how you know. A lot of straight people who are homophobic ask gay people how they know they're not straight. And the classic answer is, how do you know you're not gay? At which point they get all up in arms. It's the same argument. I was countering that argument without really explaining it, and I just wanted to be clear. I'm covering my bases because I'm thinking of when I've had this conversation with people in person, and that's the type of shit they always bring at me. That's all. And that's why there are trans people who identify as men or women with no qualifiers or extras. There are people who are assigned one gender at birth, and they grow to realize that they identify as the other one entirely and completely, and they never change that. They don't have to waver on that. They're not non-binary. They're not a little bit of both. There are people who are just clean-cut one or the other, and still trans. So, they've had to think about it, I guess my point here is that being trans and being non-binary are not the same thing, but if you're non-binary, you're also transgender, and that there's no easy correlation between any of those things. Biology, being trans, being non-binary, being assigned male or female. There's not necessarily anything that puts you on a path, because it's not a manufactured thing. It's natural. Just like figuring out you're good at math. So after I say that to people, the next thing that they always ask me is, so, who do you like? Who, are you gay? How does that work? I heard you say that you were gay once. How can you be gay if you don't have a gender? How does that work? Do you like guys? People always specifically ask me if I like guys because I'm an AMAB person. I don't know what that's about. I don't know. Stigmatism of gay men. Homophobia. Turn it up. No, you're not necessarily gay just because you're non-binary. Or trans, but I'm going to focus on non-binary people today. The terminology changes about who you like based on your gender, right? If you're a man who likes women, you are heterosexual, you're straight. If you're a woman who likes women, you are gay, you're a lesbian, you are not heterosexual. And, you can obviously like multiple types of people, but what I'm saying is, the terminology for who you like changes based on not only who it is that you like in theory, but also who you are and how you identify. A lot of trans people choose to use gay as an umbrella term, a catch-all. There are some gay men who, based on the history of gay men's struggles, choose to sort of reject that and say, hey, please use a more descriptive, word or term, or use something even more general like queer, and, gay is our word, just like lesbian is for women who like women. Everyone gets their own word. I understand that argument. I use gay to describe myself despite the fact that I have never identified as a gay man, but if someone has a problem with that, I'm willing to discuss, and I'm not going to be a dick, because that is definitely everyone's individual fight to fight, and everyone has the right to claim their own terms, so I'm with you. So, with that said, I'm a non-binary trans person who happens to like anybody of pretty much any gender, based less on their gender than their personality, but gender definitely plays a role in who I'm attracted to. And because of all of those things, I choose to identify myself as bisexual. And you might be saying, bisexual? That means two, Olivia, that means two. It can't possibly mean more than men, women, or men and non-binary people, or women and non, it has to be two. And to that, I call bullshit. Not because I ignore etymology. I wouldn't know the word etymology if I ignored etymology. But I just think that, bisexuality can be expanded, A lot of people say that pansexuality is for liking anyone, and bisexuality is for liking only two specific genders of people. And I started identifying as bisexual when I was 14, before I knew I was trans, before I'd ever thought about it, before I even knew that non-binary people existed. And so when I identified as bisexual for the first time, I meant men and women because I thought there were only men and women. And then I learned that there were more than just men and women, and I realized that I have no lack of attraction to someone because they're not a man or a woman, but I also am very comfortable being bisexual, and so I choose to identify that way. But you see, it's complicated, and every single person has their own individual story, background, set of experiences, identity, label. Everyone has their own interpretation, and there are very few interpretations, in my opinion, that should be off limits or gate-kept. There's really no point in pushing people out of acceptance, just because of who they like or who they are. Last thing I wanted to cover is, how do you know if someone is non-binary? You don't. You fucking don't. And guess what? You don't know if someone is trans either. You might think that you can see every trans person and know that they're trans, but I guarantee you've met a trans person without knowing they were trans. It just happens. We're everywhere. It's beautiful. And I'm not trying to say that you should think that every person you ever fucking meet could possibly be trans. What I'm trying to say is that it doesn't matter whether they are or not unless they tell you. Think about it. You don't know if someone is gay unless they tell you, or show interest in someone that would imply they were gay. You don't know if someone is good at math until you see them do math. And so therefore, how would you know? And do you have to? Definitely not. The only reason you have to know if someone is trans is if you're going to be intimate with them. And if you don't know by then, you're in some deep shit. So that's all I wanted to talk about today. I'm gonna have a fun time editing this because I've been rambling, but I just wanted to kind of cover that and talk about that, and I guess come out. No, I mean, it's not coming out if I've come out 3 times on this channel, right? You all know by now. You all pick up on my vibes, right? I hope so. But I did want to talk about that, clear the air, and if you guys have any questions or comments, you can leave them down below, or you can ask me on my Twitter @straight_upgay. I'll see you next time. Have a good one. And remember,